Welcome back. The sixth installment of the Micronesia Area Research Center seminar at the University of Guam is expected to draw in the crowds. Tomorrow, Chamorro Studies professor Rosa Salas Palomo will join anthropologist David Atienza de Frutos to go over Hurao's translated speech. And joining us here, Professor, we have Arlene Steffi. Good morning. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again.
So this is a big deal. You did the original translation of the translation for Hurao's speech, and you're here to talk to us a little bit about some controversy around this.
No, actually, I'm here to promote the seminar series.
Promoting the seminar.
And especially this one, because the Hurao speech is a very personal speech to the Chamorro people.
Right.
Right? It's part of the nation building effort. And so we want to know the basis of the Chamorro pride. Mm-hmm. We want to know the history. And when someone bases their identity on a speech or a person, we want to know a little bit about them.
Right.
And that's why Rosa is here.
And my translation, Andy, is from the Spanish version into English, and then that English into Chamorro, the one and only translation in Chamorro.
So there are many things, I'm sure, translating a translation from something that can get lost. Are there nuances with the language that you really had to go over and look at the semantics, and is that a topic of debate?
For me, with this particular piece of work, which was probably the very first piece of work that I've done, that impacts tremendously the livelihood and the nationhood of the Chamorro people, that's very, very important, because we have to consider the time period when this speech was espoused, when this speech was written down, even if it was paraphrased, and more importantly, from the linguistic side, the language, the Chamorro language that the people were using at that time.
Right, and the language has changed, as they all have. I mean, I think of it as like, say the Gettysburg Address was written in French and then translated to another language and then back to English. So maybe some things get lost there, or different languages have different ways of expressing ideas, and that's got to be challenging.
And that is the reverse with this particular speech of 1671, is that it was pronounced, it was said in Chamorro, written in Spanish, then translated into French, and then translated into English from the Spanish.
Right. It's like the telephone game. I whisper something into your ear, and then it changes as it goes down the line.
That's right.
So how did it change?
Right.
What changed? And how did she interpret those changes based on her translation are the focus of tomorrow's lecture.
That's fantastic. This is interesting stuff. So much of the culture, the identity, as you said, is from these words, this speech.
Some people put it as their primary foundation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to build on something, right? And so Rosa's work and Atienza's assistance, because translating to Spanish, I think you'll see tomorrow night, even Rosa, to your chagrin, can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
To your chagrin?
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, because it's so. I mean, even Rosa today is not the same person she was back when she first translated it, and she doesn't speak Hurao's language.
Right.
Very few, if anyone.
And
does.
I don't know very much Spanish either.
Right.
I mean, you know, it was.
So there are many challenges with this.
Right.
And so you're actually reviewed your work again. You have to go back to your work and take a look at it again. How did that go?
Exactly. Well, you know,
break out the red pen and just.
Actually, we were talking along the way here, and I said, "Geez, you know, I'm a bit embarrassed, if I may say, of the work that I did in 1987, because now critiquing myself." Which I'm glad that it is I who is critiquing myself.
Better you than
somebody else,
right?
yes. I do feel a bit embarrassed. I've made Hurao speak a lot of Spanish terms that was not possible at that time.
Right.
Because the Spaniards had only been there for a few years.
I don't think there's anything
and
to be
that's not enough
about.
time.
I mean, you did
but
what you could with the knowledge that you had at the time.
Absolutely.
True. But for me, that's major. So that would be the one thing that I would own up to immediately, is that I definitely needed to make a lot of changes in my translation to consider the time period, what was going on with the church at that particular time, because a lot of the language would have had was impacted by the goings on of the Jesuits and what they were doing here on Guam, and even the terminological semantics, the meanings changed over.
Well, you look at
over
Old
the
English,
time.
Shakespearean English to the English that we speak now. It's completely different.
Right.
And that's okay.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's
okay.
fine.
We have
It
to be
evolves.
comfortable with that. Exactly. It's a living organism.
That's right.
It's going to develop. I think the interesting part is that people today, reflecting their current way of living, think that the church was always a great part of their lives. It would have, Hurrah would have never spoken that had it not been,
That's right.
had it been so.
So somebody kind of put words in his mouth?
No, I'm saying that the event itself
Right.
would have not occurred if the church was a big part of the Chamorro life.
Of course.
That happened much, much, much later.
Yeah. Interesting. So tell us about the seminar, when and where this will be taking
Tomorrow
place.
night. Tomorrow night.
At the University of Guam Class Lecture Hall at 6:30 p.m.
It will be promptly at 6:30.
Promptly.
The door
Yeah.
opens at 6. Yeah, I'm in charge, so I make sure it
Okay,
starts on
good.
time.
You better be there at that
Yes, but be there or you won't get a seat.
time. Right. So are we going to get you back on in another 30 years for the second review of the translation?
By then, she won't speak a lick of English.
You'll be retired somewhere by then.
I might be in a better place, but somebody else may pick up,
Yeah,
which we hope. We
Right,
hope.
and that's the goal, is
Yes.
the next generation to pick up and learn something from what you translated, the work that you've done, add to that, evolve with that, and I think that's the ultimate goal.
I think
Right.
one of the nice things about this experience is the teaming up with Dr. Atienza, who is quite knowledgeable of the history of the church at that time period, the 17th century, and of course his knowledge of Spanish, you know. So teaming up was a great idea. We had talked about doing something last year, much, much earlier, but it seems like this was the thing to do.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to it, and best of luck to you. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, this is fascinating stuff. We could get more in-depth, but we do have to conclude this. So you guys stay tuned. More Extra will be back.